Welcome to the Mike Litton Experience Podcast. Mike has over 31 years experience in real estate, finance, and investing. He's passionate about being a father, a teacher, a realtor, an investor, and a leader. Everyone has a story, and our passion is to help them tell it. And now, introducing the host of the Mike Litton Experience, Mike Litton.
So what can you expect from the Mike Litton Experience? You can expect stories that will inspire, motivate, advice that will sharpen your focus, and expert information on real estate, finance, and market conditions.
It was actually at the very end of our pledging process, our first semester at San Diego State, we found out Caitlin was pregnant.
Okay.
And so that, obviously threw a wrench in our plans a little bit. And it was a challenge for me because, again, I went from no friends to 100 friends. Like, wow, I finally have this huge group of people that I can hang out with and really experience college. I wanted to party and stuff like that too. To all of a sudden, all right, I have all these friends and I can hang out with them, but now my girlfriend's pregnant and I can't just be going out all the time. I've got more responsibility. So that flipped upside down again at the time. But yeah, so Caitlin gets pregnant, and Emma, our daughter, who is 7, almost 8 now, she is born 3 weeks before we start our senior year. So she's pregnant that whole next semester, and then over summer going into our senior year, Emma is born. And so luckily we had a ton of help. Her grandma, Caitlin's grandma, moved down. We got a house together near San Diego State. And so Caitlin would go to school, and she'd come home, and I'd go to school. And we kind of flip flop, and then a few days a week there'd be like maybe one class where we're both on campus at the same time, and so her grandma would stay home and watch Emma for us for an hour or two a day when we needed her. So because of that, we were still able to finish and graduate like on time as we had planned. But post graduation, things were so much different because instead of both of us going into the corporate world and getting jobs, basically living that, what do they call that? Like dual income, no kids lifestyle. Yeah, like that was the plan. And if we would have done that, a lot of things would have changed. We would have, I think, been really comfortable there, making, dual income and just, sharing an apartment together. But instead, no, like it didn't make sense to pay for childcare, for Caitlin to go to work, have somebody else raise our kid. It would basically cost, nearly what she would have been making out of college at her first time job. So she decided to stay home. We decided that she would stay home for the first few years. And so we graduated, and I had a job out of college. I did an internship my senior year and got an offer. And so I was making okay money at the time. This was 2017. I, had a company vehicle and some pretty good benefits. So, but, as a single provider for a family in San Diego, like we were not even scraping by like on my income. And so after college, I tried a bunch of different things. I had, we were always trying to figure out side hustles that we could do to get by. And I had a part-time job as well. So I was working at my full-time like sales job. And then in the evenings, I would go work at a restaurant. I worked at a few different restaurants. There was a time where I had my full-time job, my restaurant job, and a marketing internship because I was trying to just get more skills and figure out different opportunities, maybe different careers that I could do. So I would every single day I would go to work. I started at 6 a.m. I got off at 2:30. I'd come home for like 30 minutes and I'd either go to the restaurant or I'd go to this internship, and then I'd get home pretty late. If I was working at the restaurant, I'd get home at like 11 o'clock a lot of times. And so that was a tough few years. I remember just like feeling so defeated. We had, I think Caitlin might have been pregnant with Elijah. We got 2 kids now, but there were times where I would go to work at 6 o'clock in the morning and Emma would still be asleep. And then I would come home in the afternoon. It would be her nap time. And I'd only be home for a brief, moment to change and go to the next job. And then I get home from the restaurant at 11 o'clock and she'd be in bed again. And so I remember I went like a whole week one time without seeing her at all. And I was like, dude, we live in the same house. Like
Yeah.
we're here together, but I'm so busy and I'm all over the place that I never got to see her. And so that's what, pushed us to really start trying to figure out different things. We tried affiliate marketing and blogging and Amazon FBA and a few other things, and nothing really stuck. And then I found wholesaling, and I found wholesaling in end of summer 2018. Is I stumbled across this blog. It was called Side Hustle Nation, and this guy was describing wholesaling, like finding these properties, getting them under contract, marketing up, and basically selling these contracts. And I was like, wow, like this sounds cool. I think I could do this. But at the time, I was so busy, I didn't have any time to actually like implement. And so Elijah was born that December, a few months later, and I was gonna take paternity leave, and so I had like 90 days. I was like, all right, this is my window to make something happen. Um, and what's funny is I actually didn't believe that wholesaling was gonna be possible. I know I just said like, hey, I could do this, but I'd spent a few months, studying and like listening to podcasts and everything like that, and it sounded too good to be true. I thought it'd be too hard. And so my plan was to actually get another job. I was going to work for this magazine selling advertising. It was a 1099 sales job. And so my plan was to go on paternity leave, go hard selling ads so that I could quit my job. And, as this 1099 sales position, this would give me more freedom to then try and wholesale on the side.
Yeah, because
I
you're
went
not
to
punching the
Den
clock. You're not. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. So that was the plan. I went to Denver and went to this like training for this magazine to do the sales job, and then I came home, and I think Elijah was like a week or so old, and I would go out to my truck to make cold calls, and I spent like 3 days cold calling. I had one in-person appointment, and I realized like this, I just hated it. I was like,
Yeah.
this is terrible. I was selling ads for a magazine during the first appointment I did. The guy was like, how am I going to track like that these ads are doing anything? I could run ads on social media and I can see exactly like how many clicks I'm getting and like how many views I'm getting and like all the traction. They're like, this is so old school. Why would I pay for advertising in this free magazine you
Right.
guys have? And I was like, yeah, that makes sense. I didn't even believe in what I was selling. And so I was like, all right, well, wholesaling can't be any worse than this. Like, I don't even
Yeah.
believe in what I'm trying to sell. And so that's when we decided to try and make that work.
So let's stop for just 1 second. I'm sorry to interrupt you,
Yeah.
but
Sorry. No,
let's.
I'm going on a rant.
No, no, you're fine. You're okay. I want you to. I just for our listeners, if anybody's listening and they don't know what wholesaling is,
Yeah.
let's define it for them, right? So what wholesaling is in real estate is you go out and you find a property that is oftentimes has deferred maintenance. It's distressed. Maybe the seller's in a rough place. They might be getting a divorce. They might be, they might have had a death in the family. Could be any number of things. And they're not sure what to do with the property. And a wholesaler basically will come in and put an offer in on the property, get that offer accepted. Then they'll take that contract and they'll basically sell that contract and or the property to an investor that will pay a little bit more. So it might be $5,000 more, it might be $50,000 more, right? But they'll find somebody who will take that contract off their hands, and that investor will actually end up closing on that deal. And there's different ways to do it, but basically you're buying it here, you're selling it to an investor here, who then is going to fix it up and sell it here. Basically where the market is for a remodeled property. Fair?
Yeah, yeah, and I think an
Okay.
important part in that is, as the wholesaler, you're not actually buying the property.
Right.
You're
You're
just
putting it under
contracting
contract.
it, yeah, marking up the price a little bit, and then when the buyer buys the property, you get to collect that spread that you created
Yeah.
in the middle.
Right. And
So,
so whatever that spread is, right? It could be $5,000. It could be, we worked on one a couple of years ago, not you and I, but a different wholesaler and I worked on one a couple of years ago. The spread was $725,000.
woo,
And they got it. They got it.
it's
They
wild.
closed on it.
Yeah,
it's, it's it can be a large delta, right?
Yeah, yeah,
But it's usually five, 10, $15,000. I mean, it's not usually a huge amount. So you go in, so you decide to go, sorry to interrupt you. So you decide to go into wholesaling because wholesaling can't be any worse than selling ads, right? For a magazine.
yeah,
Uh, so
exactly.
what happens when you decide to go full bore into wholesaling? Then you're in your paternity leave, right?
Yes.
Yeah. So now
So
clock's ticking,
clock is ticking, so we got to make something happen quickly.
right?
And we got really lucky on our first deal. So I think this is a really cool part of our story. My son was 3 weeks old.
Mhm.
Our daughter was in daycare, and she was in daycare part time. So I want to say it was Monday through Friday, but it was only for like 3 hours. We'd like
Yeah.
drop her off at like 9 or 10 and pick her up at like 12 or 1 or something like that. So very short. And so what we would do is I got a list of pre-foreclosures from a local title company.
Mhm.
They emailed it to me. It had phone numbers. So this is addresses of houses that are, in pre-foreclosure. So, that we're hoping that there's some motivation that these sellers might want to sell at a discount.
Sure.
And it's got phone numbers on it, skip traced. And so I printed out this list. We were old school. We had no CRM, we had no dialer or anything like that. I literally printed out this list, and I remember it was like 2 pages landscape in order to fit like all of the columns from the spreadsheet that I taped together. And I'm hand dialing all the phone numbers, and then I'm taking notes like wrong phone number, disconnected, doesn't want to sell, right? I'm hand taking notes. And so we'd be sitting in the kitchen, hand dialing and taking notes. And then a couple days a week, we would go and door knock these properties that were on the list for people that we couldn't get a hold of.
Mhm.
And so one day this is probably like our first week of doing this. We are door knocking a house right by San Diego State. Nobody answers. Someone probably got a good deal on this house. I remember there's like a tarp on the roof, and like it looks like a good deal, but nobody answers. We couldn't get a hold of the person for that property. Um, and so we're about to head to the next property, but my wife needs to like feed our son before we put him back in his car seat, so we won't scream the whole way on the way to the next property.
Mhm.
So she's sitting there in the passenger seat feeding our son, and I've got the list now pulled up on my phone, and I'm like copying and pasting and calling now on the list, and pretty much no one is answering. So I'm just leaving voicemail after voicemail after voicemail, saying, "Hey, me and my wife, we're real estate investors. We see your house is on this list. We want to see if we can help you. Like, give me a call back." And the next day, somebody calls me back from one of those voicemails that I left. And he's like, "Hey, I'm in Chula Vista. I've got this house. It's in pre foreclosure, but I've also got a rental in San Antonio, Texas. And I want to sell that so that I can save my house here. Do
Mhm.
you buy houses in San Antonio?" And, I didn't know what I didn't know, but I told him, yes, absolutely. I buy houses in San Antonio.
Mhm.
And so we agreed to meet at a Starbucks a couple days later, went over everything. He definitely, wanted to sell, and I was scared to get it under contract because I didn't know if it would sell, and I
Mhm.
didn't want to not be able to perform. And so I had the address, and I went on Bigger Pockets,
Mhm.
and I looked up like buy and hold investors in San Antonio, and I DM'd every single buy and hold investor on San Antonio. I ended up like getting my account like suspended for a little while because they thought I was spamming people. But I ended up connecting with a buyer who was stationed out in San Antonio. He was from Irvine, and he was looking to buy his first rental property.
Mhm.
And I coordinated a time for him to go walk through the property. He gave me some feedback, told me where he needed to be at on price. And so I set up another meeting with the owner actually while he was walking through the property, and he was breaking it down like, "Hey, these are all the things it needs. This is what it's going to cost. This is where we need to be at." And I was able to like get it under contract and like agree on a price and everything like that with the seller in that moment while the buyer was walking through.
Cool.
Which is not the way to do it,
Right.
but like I was just desperate, and like I was just taking it step by step, and like that's kind of where it had led me.
You do
And
what you got to
so
do when you got to do it, right?
yeah, that's really it. And so I got that deal under contract. We think we had like a 3 or 4 week escrow.
Mhm.
And a bunch of things happened in between, like contracting that and selling it. It turns out that house was in foreclosure and was going to auction like a week before we were supposed to close, and so we had to scramble to get that done. We closed on that deal like 6 hours before it was getting sold at auction, which was wild. And there was a bunch of other stuff. The seller tried ghosting me like halfway through the transaction, and a bunch of like things happened. It was so stressful for 3 weeks. But at the end of that 3 weeks, I made $7,000. And that
Wow.
was the most money I had ever seen in my life. Biggest check I ever got, most I ever had in my account. And it happened in 3 weeks from like calling this guy to closing. And I was like doing the math, and I was like, this was stressful and it was hard. But all in all, I probably have like 6 hours worth of work into this deal.
Mhm.
And I made 7 grand. So I'm like, man, like that's a good, per hour,
Yeah.
that I'm making right there. And so
Yeah. What can
that
you do that
was,
you make over $1,000 an hour? Come on.
yeah, nothing that yeah,
That's
exactly.
right.
So that was definitely a life-changing moment. That first year, I, continued to just wholesale on the side. I went back after my paternity leave ended and was just working my W-2 job. And I was working at a restaurant still. I started running Facebook ads, and I did a few deals like that first year. Second year, same thing, did a few deals on the side. And then I went full time at the end of 2020, at the end of my second year.
Cool. That's a
And
hustle,
then,
man. So how many
yeah,
deals did you do before you went full time?
I did 8.
Awesome.
Not a lot, not a lot. 8
Awesome.
over
So,
2
but
years.
yeah, but you were doing it part time. So you were doing it evenings, weekends, that kind of thing, right?
Yeah, my job was flexible, so I'd kind of find ways to like do it while I was working. Like I didn't have a boss that was looking over me. I was a vendor slash event salesperson, and so I had a lot of freedom. But yeah, it was 100%, on the side. But then my first year going full time, I completely failed, and I did one deal my entire first year in 2021. I did
Why?
one deal. There's a few different things. The first couple years, I was running Facebook ads, and so I was getting inbound leads. And then, like January 2021, or the end of 2020, beginning of 2021, like Facebook made a bunch of changes, and my ads weren't really working anymore, and so I had to pivot. And I decided cold calling was going to be the way, and so I tried a bunch of different things. I like hired, a cold caller. I hired one through an agency, and then I tried to train my own, and then that wasn't working out. So I was like, all right, I'll cold call myself. And then that didn't work out because I got an office in PB, which was like
Mhm.
way too early. I was riding this ego of like, I'm self-employed, I need an office because I'm a, business owner and everything like that. And so I like co-leased a space with somebody, and I would go to the office every morning, and I would open my dialer, and I had all my leads, and I would just sit there in front of the computer and just like terrified basically to make cold calls. Like I couldn't get myself to do it. I should have been spending all day every day cold calling, and I couldn't do it. And so that was a big part of it. It was just like I kind of failed myself because I hated doing acquisitions, and I didn't realize how much I hated doing acquisitions until that was like my full-time thing, and I wasn't getting inbound leads anymore. And so yeah, that was it. I tried a bunch of different things too, like direct mail, and it was just I was spending money that wasn't really coming back at all. And
Right.
so it was a very humbling experience. It was like towards the end of that summer, I had to go back to working at a restaurant part time just so we could get by. I had like burnt through all of our savings, and was having to figure out how to start from zero again. My wife, I think the previous summer, had become an agent, and she was doing pretty good as a real estate agent. So my plan was I was going to get my license. I started taking the classes for that. I would do what she was doing. She was getting inbound leads from Zillow, and those were nice. So I was like, all right, I can do that. I can rebuild our savings, and then I can relaunch a wholesaling company. Like I failed, but I hadn't really given up yet. I just was
Mhm.
like, you know what, I'm gonna figure it out one way or another. Um, and then like right before I got licensed, I had an opportunity to go to work for another wholesaling company based out of Temecula and run dispositions for them. So it was a husband and wife that ran this company. It was just them, and they brought me on because they were growing and they needed someone to do dispositions, which basically is just the person that finds the buyer. So the owner of the company, he was locking up all the contracts. He was talking to all the sellers every day. And then I would be the one that negotiated everything with the buyers and sold the contracts that we had.
Yeah. So just so we're clear, so in the wholesaling deal, you've got, so in this case, you've got somebody that's dealing with the sellers directly. He's working with them. He's negotiating a contract. He's putting the property under contract at a certain number. Then your job is to go out and find the buyer that's going to buy that contract, right? So that would be a flipper. That would be somebody. How you and I met was I was the director of acquisitions for a large flipper in San Diego, and I was looking for properties. I was looking for opportunities for us to buy, fix up, and resell. And so, which is flipping, right? So what you were doing was you were basically, and the other day when we were at this networking event, I literally said to everybody, and I meant it, that's where the rubber meets the road. The disposition side of wholesaling is the single most important part. Getting it under contract is important. It's a big deal. But once you have it under contract, you've got to get that contract sold. Otherwise, your time's going to run out. You're not going to make any money, and you've now wasted a bunch of, you spent a bunch of time needlessly that you can't get back, right? So working in dispositions, I think, is probably the best thing you've ever done in your career, only because it gave you an opportunity to add value to people who are wholesaling. Does that make sense? So,
yeah.
So that's, I mean, people can wholesale all day long. They can go secure contracts. They just are not necessarily the master marketers that they need to be to do the dispo side of it. And that's really where the wholesaler is going to make their money.
Yeah, I mean, it's important. I think both sides need each other.
Yeah.
Like without a good acquisition guy, you have no deal to sell in the first place. And if you don't have someone doing dispositions for you, a lot of acquisitions guys, they try to sell their own deals, but in the meantime, they're taking their foot off the pedal of acquisitions and their pipeline dries up. And it's, everyone needs to work together, to sell these deals.
Well, it's about focus, right? You're more,
yeah, absolutely.
You're more effective if you're focusing on one versus the other, right? And the beautiful thing about what you're doing is you're the disposition pro. The acquisition pro can focus on acquiring. They can focus on what they're doing. They don't have to break away and break focus and then go try and do something that they're not necessarily equipped to do. So that's the beautiful thing about it, is working together with you. Somebody who's in acquisitions can just turn it over to you, let you take it and run with it, and then they can go back to doing what they're doing and fill their pipeline.
Exactly. So it was during that time, I spent about a year and a half with that company, that I realized I didn't hate wholesaling. I just hated acquisitions. Like, I loved the dispo side of the business. It's much more B2B. I have a product that I'm bringing to a company that is going to run their numbers and see if it makes sense for them to buy this product. I'm just bringing them opportunities. And so there's no emotions or drama involved. It's just business, and it's just numbers. And I realized, like, I hated acquisitions because there was so much drama and emotion involved with, like, trying to negotiate a price for a property when to that person, like, that's their everything, that's their nest egg, and they're obviously talking to a wholesaler because they're in some kind of stressful situation. And so I didn't enjoy that. I didn't like being people's therapist. And so when I switched over to dispositions, I realized, like, all right, I enjoy this. This is fun, and I'm good at it. So I did that for a little under a year and a half, where I was just, exclusively running dispositions for this one company, and we did really good. 2021 was the best year for wholesaling. Every property that we got under contract, it would sell in 24 hours. It would sell for $20, $30, $40,000 over asking. Because on the other side, for flippers, every deal that you bought in 2021, you could buy a bad deal, and if you hold it for 3 months, you're going to make money on it, because the market was just month over month growing, like, I don't even know how much, but exponentially. And so
crazy.
It was a fantastic year for wholesalers, for flippers. And then at the end of 2021, things changed. Interest rates went up. A lot of people that bought stuff over the summer, all of a sudden they were, underwater. And so it flipped really quickly. But it was a great year to like kind of get my feet wet and get like go from doing 4 deals a year to I think we did 40 deals my first year in
Yeah.
disposition. So I got a lot of just experience there with them. And then in April of last year, I left that company and now I'm just running my own disposition company where instead of being exclusive to one wholesaler, I do dispo for tons of different people that I've connected with over the years.
Yeah, and that's cool. That's really cool. So let me ask you this. What's your favorite thing about what you're doing now?
The freedom, honestly, like there's nothing quite like the freedom of just being self-employed. I remember even being a 1099 employee of a small wholesaling company, there was a lot of stress. Like anytime my kids were sick and like they had to stay home from school, or anytime I was sick and like had a fever and like couldn't get out of bed, like there was a lot of stress involved with like having to call out or having to go in late or just having to work a different schedule. And it's just now, being able to make those decisions for myself. Like, hey, we're all not feeling good today. We're not getting our day started till 10 o'clock, but knowing I can still get what I need to get done and not have to feel that tension of someone else being mad at me because I'm not working on their schedule. That's been huge. We've also, like a few months ago or a couple months ago, we took a trip to Big Bear. We went up on like a Wednesday, stayed through Sunday. I was working from the ski lift and the freedom to be able to be remote and to experience these quality moments with my kids, with my family. I get to take them to school every day. I pick them up. I take them to gymnastics. Like I get to be much more involved, like my dad was. And so, just yeah, the freedom of being self-employed is by far better than anything else that I could ask for.
They're only that age once.
Exactly. Yeah, we've got to do it now, or
Yeah,
or
you got
it's
to
gone.
because you'll never get that chance back to take them to school or pick them up from school or you know what I mean?
Yeah.
It's
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 only a matter of time before they don't even want to hang out with me anymore. We're in this small window where like they still think I'm cool. They still want me to do stuff with them and go everywhere with them. And so I'm trying to take advantage of that as much as I possibly can.
yeah, they're only a few years away from dad's not cool anymore.
Yeah, exactly.
So yeah. Okay, so you have your own company now, you specialize in dispositions. Is there anything else that you're working on that we should cover?
Not really. I mean, my wife and I like are finally in a position financially where we want to start buying ourselves. We'd love to do a development deal here in San Diego. Um, we're open to other things too, but that's really our goal. So, but I've realized like I need to be laser focused. Like this is my lane, this is my niche. I'm sticking to it. Any other course, any other shiny object, like I'm not even looking at it,
Yeah.
considering it, or anything like that. Like this is what I do, and like that's why I've been able to be really successful over the last couple of years, is because I've just stuck to that. So, um, yeah, I'm literally not working on anything else right now besides being the best, dispo person that I can be.
Cool. So if somebody needs the best in the business, and I truly believe you are, if somebody needs the best in the business in dispo, how do they reach out to you?
I appreciate that, Mike. Thank you. Instagram is fine. I get DMs all the time from people, so you can hit me up on there. I can send you. You have my Instagram, so you can put it in the show notes or something like that. But
Yeah,
do you
we'll
mind
put
if
it.
I give like a little pitch on like why I'm a little bit different than other
Oh no,
wholesalers
go
that
ahead.
focus on dispo? All right.
Go ahead.
So what I do is different than most other, daisy chain wholesalers, which is essentially what I am. I'm not direct to seller on any of these deals. I am just helping other wholesalers that have inventory move their deals. So one thing that I do that's different, and if you're a new wholesaler or if you're, beating your head against the wall like I was in 2021, um, then this is something you might want to consider doing as well. But so if you send me a deal that you want to wholesale, the first thing I'm going to do is when I market that deal, I'm going to market it at the same price that you're marketing it at, because there's always going to be a crossover between my buyer's list and your buyer's list. And if a buyer gets the same deal from two different people at two different prices, they're going to be pretty ticked off. They're going to be mad at you for letting it happen. They're going to be mad at me for just trying to mark a deal up and try to make money on something that I don't have directly, and it creates conflict. And so I market it at the same price as you, but my goal is still to net you more than you would with any of your other buyers, and to add my fee on top of your asking price. So what we're going to do is, while you're marketing it to your buyers and offers are coming in, you're going to tell me where your offers are coming in at. If your offers are coming in, say right at 500K, I'm going to tell my buyers, hey, there's some offers on the table. In order for me to win this deal for you, we need to be at 520. That way I can make you an extra 5K on top of what you already had, and I can make my 15 on top of that. And it creates a win-win where you're getting what you want without pissing off your buyers, without pissing off my buyers. And then my buyer loves that I'm helping him because I have the inside scoop. I'm telling him where the offers are coming in at, where he needs to be at to win that property. And he sees me as like basically his buyer's agent that's on his team. And I'm there to help him win that deal. And so it's a way to like do these daisy chain deals and be in the middle, but make sure that everybody is happy and make sure that you're offering value to both sides. So I've kind of switched my business model to doing it that way, and I've found a lot of success from doing that.
That's cool, man. That's a win-win way to do it, and that's what you want, right? That's where trust is built, and it's the best way to conduct your business. It's above board. It's the way you operate anyway, and it's one of the reasons why you and I are friends, and one of the reasons why we're going to do a lot of business together, and we have in the past. So super excited to have you on as our guest on the Mike Litton Experience. And I know that the future's incredibly bright, buddy. This is awesome. Thanks again for being here.
I appreciate it. Yeah, thanks so much for your time, Mike.
We hope you enjoyed another episode of the Mike Litton Experience. If you did, do us a favor, smash that subscribe button, tell your friends, family, and coworkers about our program, and wherever you get your podcasts, please leave us a rating. It helps us to connect with quality people just like you.
And that's a wrap. Another episode of the Mike Litton Experience in the books. Reach out to Mike on Instagram at Litton Realty. Want to meet with Mike? Check out calendly.com/Rio760.